feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Hello and welcome to the last edition of the PTBNL podcast. That's right, we have finally decided on a name. We're not going to release that name yet. I'm going to allow the member of this team who brought it to us to do that this weekend. But this is, for the final time, the podcast to be named later because we finally made good on that promise. And I'm super, super stoked about that. I'm hosting this one tonight. I am Shane, and I am joined by Andrew. Andrew, how you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. Had another good day here. Just got a bunch of schoolwork done and continuing to read.
There you go. Biscuit, how you doing, sir?
I am doing very swell, Shane. As always, I'm very happy to be on, so thank you.
I love the fact that you just said the word swell. I thought that I was the only one who still did it. I
love
appreciate
swell.
you for that. Yeah, it's a very underutilized word. That and whilst. Those are my two go-tos that people are like, why are you saying that? Because it sounds great. And then I got Scott. Scott, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. Coming in hot off of a brief run to try to get the blood flowing, and boy, am I out of shape.
Oh. Well, I haven't been for a run in I don't know how long, so you'd have me beat. Scott, you're going to have a microphone soon, so I'm not going to have to do awkward editing on your noise clip or sound clips in the show, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited to be a real podcaster. I've just been faking it for the last year.
You had to make sure you enjoyed it before you invested.
Yeah, of course. I probably pushed that a bit further than I really needed to, but hey, happy the mic's on its way. So as soon as you hear me with just like a smooth jazz kind of voice crackling over the interwebs, then you'll know that I have my mic.
So just so everyone's aware, so I do all of our editing Rob does some, but I don't know how much he goes into it. I have everyone's base mic setting from a random conversation that we had a year ago or whenever we all met. And Scott's, I have to zoom into the clip so deep to sit there and find which points are his because he's so damn quiet with his iPhone speakers. What are you using, by the way? It's Apple Pod, right?
Yeah, I use AirPods,
whatever the fuck they're called. So I have to dig deep into these sound files to find his and highlight specifically only his. And there are so many times where I'll be listening to our own show back, making sure everything sounds okay, or just doing just a random check to make sure everyone sounds pretty balanced. And I will have messed up and it'll just be a random bit of dead air. And then Rob comes in, who's got the loudest voice of all of us, and just blows us. It is horrendous in the car. So as a listener, you guys should all be grateful that Scott has finally invested in a microphone because I won't have to do that anymore. So we have a couple things on for tonight. First, we are going to go through, and I promise this won't be quite as depressing as it sounds. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it. But the run that kind of brought us all together as Philly fans at this point, that 07 to 011 run, we're going to talk about that slow death and some obscure reasons, some big reasons as to why this team only won that one championship in 2008. And then we're also going to wrap up our side of the bracket. You guys heard a little bit of the first three responses from Rob, from Sean, and from Boric the other night. We're going to give ours. We're going to see if we can't balance some scales out here and right the ship, because a couple of their selections I was less than pleased with. But I may very well be on an island here. So we will get to that towards the end as well. But let's first start off with the collapse of this should have been dynasty. And we've seen it all across sports for years. Those teams who won only one championship, or you have teams like the Buffalo Bills who lost multiple in a row. We can all confidently say that this team had entirely too much talent and too much invested in them over these years to come away with just one ring. So we're going to dive into some of the reasons why they went from World Series champion to losing to the Yankees in 2009 to then losing to the eventual champions in 2010 in the Giants, to then losing in the divisional round to the eventual champions in the Cardinals. We're going to go through that, and we're going to figure out what the hell we actually place this blame on. So I'm going to start first with Biscuit, who's been going through these things all day because we have nothing better going on during a quarantine than to sit here and be depressed about the old Philadelphia Phillies dynasty that never was. So Biscuits, why don't you give us one of yours so far?
So what I kind of did with this assignment was I kind of went through each, elimination playoff series for the Phillies that happened after the 2008 World Series, obviously starting with the 2009 World Series. And, just going back, looking at some of the box scores, looking at the stat lines from that series, the Phillies were just kind of outplayed. And I know that's not anything groundbreaking, but that's really what it came down to. Obviously, starting pitching wasn't great. Outside of Cliff Lee, the only starter who had 2 wins that series. Cole Hamels was abysmal. Their closer, who was perfect a season ago, literally fell to pieces, who had a 721 earned run average that season, in Brad Lidge. And the bats weren't much better either. Howard, I think, hit in like the low 170s. He didn't have a single home run. Victorino wasn't great. I think the only hitter that really, did anything substantial was Chase Utley. I think he had 5 home runs that series.
Yes, sir.
Hideki Matsui was literally a beast for the Yankees. I'm pretty sure he hit his batting average was in the 600s. Slugging was well over 1,000. Johnny Damon had some clutch hits as well. So they were just kind of outplayed. And I think, coming off that high of 2008, you really thought it was going to happen again. But, they just kind of got stopped by the Yankees. And it didn't get much better after that.
So that is the least sexiest way to start this thing off, is just that they were flat out outplayed. We know they were fucking outplayed. They were outplayed every series that they lost. We're going for some specific things here. So I'm going to take one bit of one of the things that you had mentioned, and I'll throw in one of mine and how it kind of works together. You had mentioned Brad Lidge's 7.20 or 7.21 ERA that season. He blew his first save of the year, first save in 79 appearances for the Philadelphia Phillies. To that point on April 18th that year. April 18th, by the way, fantastic holiday. And if you don't understand that reference and joke, go watch Jim Jeffries. It's incredibly inappropriate. But we don't talk enough about, and this was something that was kind of jokingly mentioned, but then seriously taken. We don't know, or at least I don't think it was ever proven to be something that had happened, or the reason for this happening. But Ryan Howard tackling him after that World Series win. So after that pitch went in, and Lidge drops to his knees. And if you guys have watched the Terrence Howard narrated Philadelphia Phillies thing, you understand that Ryan Howard said he just saw red. He ran in and he said he was hitting him as hard as he could. He was jumping on that pile, and that's what it was. Well, Lidge battled right knee injuries all off season, and then it didn't really get much better throughout that 2009 season. And as a right-handed pitcher, you're getting all your power and all your downhill motion off that back leg, and he wasn't able to do that with any type of consistency or real strength and push off. And when you take a guy who was legitimately perfect for you the year before, now perfect would have been an unrealistic thing, but what would happen if Ryan Howard doesn't truck him? What happens if Ryan Howard just goes in and kneels next to him, which is not something that would happen emotionally, but just think, what if one other person had beat Howard there?
You got to think as well that you got to think as well that started to weaken Ryan Howard's Achilles tendon, and maybe that led to him blowing out his Achilles, the next year. And
he blew out his Achilles 3 years later, but yeah.
Oh well, it started the degradation, yeah. So you got to take care of yourself as a baseball player,
That's fair.
Just so many bad things happened in that moment that I didn't even know about.
But that is one thing. So a big piece of the Philadelphia Phillies' success then was their bridge to Lidge, so to speak, right? You get J.C. Romero, who's suspended, Ryan Madsen, who anyone who knows me and has listened to all of our Philly shows over the year, and we've had several at this point, knows how much I dislike Ryan Madsen. And it comes from a place of he should have been so much better for so much longer than what he really was. And it's not to say that he wasn't a tremendous pitcher and had a very good, albeit strange, and a MLB career. He was such a mental midget that it drove me crazy. And I think that's where the resentment comes for me with him. But so much of that bullpen there and the right things to get you, like, you knew starters go 5, 6, 7 innings, no one's scoring the rest of the game. And if they are, they're scoring a run and we're winning this baseball game. You lose that confidence, that impacts your starters. You have a then 25-year-old Cole Hamels coming off of an improbable year at age 24 where he's a MVP of the World Series. And I mean, if you guys listen to High Hopes Pod, they had mentioned this is a kid who put the city on his back at 24 years old, a city that hadn't gone for a championship in 25 years at that point. And to then come back, like, you knew that wasn't going to be another tremendous Cole Hamels year. But think about how much harder that had to have been on Cole at this point to be damn near perfect, because he didn't have that crutch of the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning security that the 2008 bullpen provided them. Let's go to Scott here for this next one. So, Scott, you had mentioned sarcastically the Achilles tear of Ryan Howard. So why don't we go with something other than the Ryan Howard Achilles tear, because we'll get to that one later in the pod. What do you got for us?
Let's just hammer on Ryan Howard. Even though you just said to get away from his Achilles, I won't talk about that. I'll talk about the massive contract that he got in 2008. I remember when Ryan Howard signed his contract, I was all jacked up. I was, just starting college, I believe. It was 2009, so I was graduating high school, starting college, and all excited. Thought I knew everything about baseball. Saw the contract, was pumped. Ryan Howard deserves all the money, right? Wrong. One thing in baseball that I've learned over the years is that you don't overpay first baseman. It never works, and the Phillies did exactly that. Had no money to invest in other things. I mean, it was just very sexy at the time to give a giant contract to a first baseman who hits a ton of home runs, which Ryan Howard did, and he fit the bill. And hey, it's market value on a player, right? I mean, I think it was.
Well, we set the market. That's why they paid him.
Well, yeah, but so he got this giant 10-year contract or 8 years, whatever it was. It was in the market of $10 to $15 million a year.
It's 20 or 25 million over 6 years, I think.
Okay. 5 year, 125 million.
525.
Did a little Google, and it didn't kick in until 2012.
Yeah, that's okay. That makes sense, because I was looking at his number breakdown over his career. Ryan Howard made $190 million playing baseball, by the way. So let that contract with you. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of money for those keeping track at home. But to me, when you invest that much in a large part of your lineup and then he underperforms and gets hurt and is never the same, you're fucked. There's no recovering from that. You can't get rid of the contract. You can't move him. There was no value in him anymore. And it just sunk the Phils. And then they kept, just trying to band-aid it up and leave him in the lineup. And he just underperformed for 5 years before he just fell apart completely.
So I have a small counter to that, because I think it was smart to set the value with him. And obviously it aged horrendously. And buyer's remorse to anything when you pay that kind of a price tag. It's never going to be worth that ever. You leave a lot, it already diminishes in value. Same thing with Ryan Howard here. But how much do you guys place on the rise of analytics in baseball and information and the shift? So much of Ryan Howard, if you take a look at early, I mean, obviously the power was exceptional. A big part of it was guys don't really have books on anyone. Obviously, as you're entering the league, those first couple of years, he saw a ton of fastballs, because you think my fastball at a major league level is something that, these guys have never seen before in double and triple A. So we're going to pound them with my best pitch. And for a lot of these guys, it's their fastball. Well, 58 home runs says you didn't really fool him that much. But even his doubles, even his singles, they were all loud. They were all hard. And almost everything was pulled if it was in the ballpark. He had tremendous opposite field power through the early part of his career. And that was in large part to, at times being fooled on that fastball, but a big part was they tried to backdoor a lot of those off-speed pitches to him, and he just waited on it and made him pay on going that way. But for the most part, man, I feel like the Phillies not having an information system and not giving a shit about the next wave of baseball, because, Scott, to steal a line from you, one of the things that I have grown to learn about baseball is that it is 100% a game of adjustments. And if you're behind that curve, you set yourself back so many years. And they did that. And they did that a tremendous disservice to guys like Ryan Howard, who had an insane amount of success doing one thing. Now, had they preached this change to him early on, who's to know what kind of a player he could have continued to be? Ultimately, that shift comes in, the information comes in, and it says, hey, he's never putting the baseball on the ground to the left side of the infield. We're going to basically stick a rover out there in the outfield, shift our third baseman over here and our shortstop deep, almost in center field. Guy can't run. We're going to get him at first base every time, and it works. We saw a guy from his rookie year hit, 320, something like that, with a gajillion home runs. Went down every single year because he failed to adjust, and the Phillies failed to put a plan in place to help him adjust. So I think that, even more so than the injuries and even more so than the dollar value of that contract, hurts the Phillies.
No, I agree with that completely. I think, it clearly impacted, like you said, just look at his average going down every year, and he was unable to make the adjustments. And I'm a huge Ryan Howard fan, and I loved what he was doing. And that's something personally I like. That's why I like the shift, is because it's on the hitter to adjust. I know that's another debate, but a lot of people think, I heard a lot of things that people think the shift should go away. But that's why I think it's good to have in the game, because it does make a hitter kind of rethink his approach at the plate. And if they're that good of a hitter, they need to learn how to hit the ball the other way. Or even, in his case, he's not that fast, but other guys, you lay down a bunt right down the third base line or something, just to keep the third baseman, keep him over that way, just to open some part of that field back up, I think would go a long way. But I remember just how many of his hits that would look like, oh, that's gonna be at least a single, but then all of a sudden the second baseman's running in shallow right field, cutting the ball off, and then throwing him out at first.
Yeah, it was impossible. One could argue that Ryan Howard changed the game. When you had power hitters like that in this era where analytics were first kind of being born and being put into play, at least to the level that we've now grown accustomed to at this point, you looked at guys like Ryan Howard and you said, how can we stop this guy from beating us? Because the unfortunate thing is, even had Ryan Howard begun to, and as you said, Andrew, lay a bunt down the third base line, you don't think that every team in 2006, 7, 8, and 9 are going to live with a Ryan Howard single, maybe double on a bunt versus the, what did he hit? 185 home runs over that stretch?
Yeah.
They're all going to live with that. And then they're going to make the next guy beat you. It's the equivalent of intentionally walking someone at that point. You just live to fight a different battle.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And that was my big thing, and one of the other reasons why I think he really started to fall off is because they never replaced that 5-hitter when they lost Pat Burrell or Jason Worth, and that just lets the pitcher kind of pitch around him. That's an adjustment he was also never able to make, is not laying off a bad pitch, and that's why he had so many strikeouts, because they weren't afraid to either walk Howard or have him chasing a third strike, because if they walked him, they're going to go up and face whoever at that point. And they're not afraid of that 5-hitter, so they're okay with facing a guy on first base, and I think that's a big thing, and that's important and like a guy today, like say Bryce Harper, I know he laid a couple bunts down this year, but if he gets to first and you have Hoskinson behind him who can hit him in on a better pace than like Howard did, then you're going to see less of that shift, because they don't want Harper to bunt that down, because that's another guy to worry about. But once we lost that 5-hitter as well, then teams weren't as afraid to face Howard, because they knew they could just pitch around him the whole time.
So that was one of mine as well. The diminished lineup offensively in the middle. No one had protection for anyone. And if you take a look at it, they were staggering injuries there that you never had, or not never, that's incorrect, but there were these waves of, all right, Chase Utley's coming back, but maybe he's coming back a little early, and then, okay, now Ryan Howard's coming back. There was never that traditional 3-4-5 that we had and grown accustomed to in 2006, 7, and 8, where you have Utley, Howard, and Burrell. You know, as empty as Burrell's stats were through much of his career, it was still something you had to respect what he was able to do if he got a hold of one. And that did help Howard. And then I do think that Jason Worth was just, he still gets a lot of, let's talk about that for a second, just as something side here. Why the fuck does Philadelphia hate Jason Worth? If the Phillies were not going to pay him the contract that Washington did, like why not get mad at the organization? It's the same argument for Nationals fans hating Bryce Harper. Had the Nationals offered the Phillies what the Phillies ultimately offered Bryce Harper, he's still a National.
The thing I think people had the most thing with that Worth was after he left, he kind of ripped on the city a little bit. And I remember, I think it was a game after, it might have been his first game, it was after his first game back in Philly. I think we booed him his first plate appearance or whatever, obviously throughout the whole game probably. And after the game, he said something like, "I didn't deserve any of that" or something. And
he was right.
I hope they never walk down Broad Street again or something like that.
Well, and you're in a division rival. You have to say that. I'm not mad at him for any of this so far. Keep going.
I mean, I think that was the main reason. And then I think people thought that, they want him to take that pay cut to stay in the city that gave him his World Series, gave him his first real opportunity. I know he started with the Dodgers, but after that trade, Phillies kind of gave him that chance. And then I think, I'm not the biggest Worth fan either. I kind of hate him for a lot of it too, for what he said. But
Jesus.
I love Jason Worth.
So do I.
I loved his. He was a good player and stuff. I just hated the way he treated it when he left. I thought he could have handled it with a lot more respect to the city and the organization.
Well, I think he could have also been better that the front office didn't pony up and offer him a competitive offer. And I think part of the reason why they probably didn't do that was because they thought they had the next, power bat in the outfield in Dominic Brown. And, I don't have to sit here and say how that turned out, but, they also went and got
But he hit 27 home runs in 1 year. What are you talking about?
Oh, God.
All-star Dom Brown.
A man who made his career in 6 weeks in the MLB, Dom Brown.
Yep.
There you go.
One of my favorite quibs is I don't even know if this is true, but the rumor that at one point in 2010 there was like a proposed trade, like straight up Dom Brown for Jose Bautista, and everyone was like, "No way, Dom Brown's going to be the man." And wow.
Oh, we ended up getting Bautista anyway.
Future
hell of a
Jose
Phillies
Bautista.
career. I don't know. I find it weird, man, that you don't, and I respect it. I get why some people dislike Jason Worth, but he was arguably the second or third best player on that team for the last 2 years that he was here. 2 years that he was here. The reasons he left were no different than that of your favorite Philly of all time, Scott Rowland. At a certain point, Scott Rowland felt that they were not going to pay him his worth, and that they were certainly not going to continue to build financially around him. And what happened with the Phillies? They shipped off Cliff Lee an hour and a half after they signed Roy Halladay because they weren't totally invested financially and they wanted to replenish shit. That doesn't sit well with these guys, or it shouldn't have sat well with anyone. And then you have Worth, who isn't going to get paid his fair due, which he may have been overpaid. Let's call that what it was, but you have to pay for it at times. Mm-hmm. They could have made a more competitive offer, and they didn't. And I think it's weird to penalize Jason Worth for that, in my opinion.
Jason Worth was also given the opportunity to go be the guy in Washington and start out a new franchise, essentially. And when you get that opportunity, when you look back at history, he's not like Mr. Washington National, and the record won't show that, but it's very rare as a player in professional sports that you get the chance to lead a franchise. And he wasn't ready for it, but he took the shot. So you got to respect someone for that, whether it's for the money or not. It was a tremendous opportunity, and can't fault the guy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Angela, let's go to you, man. So what's one of your things that you have so far?
So going back for 2009, I'm going to take a different approach and blame someone not on the field. I think if you go back to Game 3 of the World Series, the series is tied 1-1 in the top of the fourth. The Phillies are currently winning 3-0 with Cole Hamels on the mound. and I'm gonna blame the right field camera because Alex Rodriguez hit a line drive to right field, which was originally called a double. So it would have been second and third. The runs still wouldn't have scored, but it hit the camera. So they had to review the play, and they ultimately said the camera got in the way of the playing field, and then ended up deeming the double a home run, put the Yankees on the board, and then later the Yankees go on to win that game 8-5, but they scored 6 straight before the Phillies finally scored again. So if that doesn't get called a home run, I still think the Phillies could have won that game, and a big game 3 like that with the series tied at 1-1, it could have changed the whole outcome of the series. So I'm gonna go with the right field camera on this one.
I had that down too, man. Thank you so much for pulling this one up. What a pain in the balls. Did you feel like that was like the year before? Jimmy Rollins clearly gets tagged in the ass at third base. The Rays had no business being in the World Series. Like everything just worked the Phillies way. I just felt like that was baseball just kind of being like, just so you know, we remember this shit. Like you had no business winning that World Series or the path that it got there in 08. And then 09 happens. And yeah, the trajectory of the baseball and that whole argument with the camera there. What crock of shit that was. That pissed me off so much. Thank you so much for having that. Scott and Biscuit, either you guys remember that?
I don't. Yeah.
Seriously? That's impossible.
I don't. I'm convinced that it was either my binge drinking through college or just repressing memories of a lot of this time of the Phils. Because I'm going back reading things, and good God, I forgot how bad we were, and I forgot how weird shit was.
I'm gonna say it was probably your college years. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, which I'm still paying for in student loans. So stay in school, kids.
That's fair. All right, so I'm gonna take a stance on 09 as well. The fucking swine flu. Like here we are in a pandemic and a decade later, and we're all sitting here in this ridiculous quarantine, and life sucks. Like this, we're without baseball. Pedro Martinez has the fucking swine flu and has to pitch Game 6. He's the only arm we have left. Has to. And he's dying. And he still didn't pitch horrendously bad. He just wasn't Pedro. He wasn't normal Bronx version of Pedro. But man, the fucking swine flu costs us. Unbelievable. Yeah. I know everyone's going to be angry at the fact that Cole Hamels was the worst year of his career in 2009. And we needed a better version of Cole. But the reality of it was that the final time, the greatest of our lifetime, or one of the greatest of our lifetime anyway, pitchers steps onto the hill in fucking New York, and he's swine flu. In his final game as a professional baseball player, he has the freaking swine flu. Unbelievable. That shit makes me sick.
Yeah, I don't think he ever came out and said who else had it, but I'm pretty sure a couple years ago he did say that other players in the clubhouse had it as well. So it went more than just him. So who knows who else it affected? Because I don't think it ever came out who else had it.
Mm-hmm. No, it never did. But there were several articles that were written, and he had mentioned several times that it had been going around the locker room at that point, and he didn't get it until the night before he was supposed to pitch again. But he had mentioned in I think it was like a Baseball Tonight, like one-on-one thing or whatever, that several guys in the clubhouse at that point, and then several equipment people had all been dealing with this, and they had to play in New York in like the infestation of all infestations like that. It's just, what a fucking shit show. What a shit show. Here we are in the pandemic, like I said, 11 years later, and we're talking about swine flu and Pedro, who didn't get it. Like, just all of it sucks. That pissed me off so much. Also, I'm pretty sure he was contractually obligated to be the Game 2 starter there, which was nuts.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. He was such a fun guy to watch too. And when we got him, even though it was the back end of his career, like it was just so much excitement because to go along with Cliff Lee, who that was the year we traded for him too from the Indians. So I mean, you bring Cliff Lee, you have Pedro Martinez, and it's just a fun dynamic duo at the top of that rotation. So I think again, if it it wasn't for the swine flu, it could have went a long way that year.
Yeah, swine flu and a camera. That's what derailed this entire thing. Screw 2009, man. All right, so you mentioned the Cliff Lee thing. We haven't talked about it too much. So let's go back to it. So I have several things on Cliff Lee here. Let's start first with the fact that we trade for Roy Halladay, and then an hour and a half later, we move Cliff Lee to Seattle. And not only do we move him to Seattle, we move him for pieces that never amount to anything substantial in an MLB career. They did this too, and Amaro had said at the time, when they get Halladay, they had completely diminished their farm system in doing so. If I remember right, it was Kyle Drabeck and two other pieces. It was catcher who's he's been floating in the division the entire time. Travis Darno.
Mm-hmm.
And then one other piece.
There's one other pitcher.
Was it another pitcher? I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it was another pitcher, and he actually went on to pitch a decent amount. Fuck, I gotta find the name now to bother me.
Carlos Carrasco was the one in the Cliff Lee deal. He's the only prospect we've ever traded that has amounted to anything.
We traded Gio Gonzalez. I forget who for, but he kind of amounted into something, right?
He had a few good years.
We had Gio Gonzalez for like 6 weeks.
Gio Gonzalez good? He's one of those guys that I'm always just convinced sucks, and then he goes out and throws like a complete game shutout. Like
nothing makes sense about Gio Gonzalez.
No.
No, I'm pretty sure he was just like a low level like A-ball guy or something when we had him and we shipped him out. Whenever it was. But
the third guy is Michael Taylor.
Michael Taylor, that's right.
Drabeck, Tiernot, and Michael Taylor. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So, but if you're moving three pieces there, and again, arguably at the time, 3 or 4 of your most highly touted prospects, like I understand the need that you're going to want to hit and kind of replenish, but holy shit, if you feel the need to go and trade the biggest acquisition that you had made at a deadline in I don't know how long to get Philippe Aumont, are you out of your fucking mind? That was some of the dumbest shit I have ever heard in my entire life. And so let's start on this one first. So first of all, city's on a high. Newspapers are already printing things of what's to be in this rotation. We're looking at, a 2009, 2010 that would have been Cole Hamels, Cliff Lee, Roy Halladay, and then, obviously fear the hitter, Joe Blanton. It's absurd to me that an hour and a half later, we're all sitting here saying, why the hell did we just trade the guy who was almost unhittable for the whole second half of the season that we had him? And not only that, people loved him. He loved Philadelphia. Do you guys remember his interview when he first got here? I don't know if this is me nerding out and remembering this shit, but do you guys remember him in that on-field interview with Salisbury?
Vaguely.
He was so fucking happy and personable. And like people have always said Cliff Lee's kind of a jerk off. And like, I totally get that. Like I've worked with him before. He's kind of an ass, but like you could tell leaving Cleveland and he was so good for, stretches of time there. And then he had that awful year and was left off the postseason roster. And then he comes back and he does what he does. And then he gets traded and he gets to come to a city like Philadelphia and a market like Philadelphia. And the dude's just ecstatic. He's so happy to be here. Then we move him. Unbelievably, he spurns Texas and the fucking Yankees and says, I'm going to come back to Philadelphia and becomes the jerk off that he's been since that day. He has never had another fun day in his life. And I'm convinced that he came back and that was actually a bad omen. The whole 4 aces thing, that was dog shit. We were never going to win with that because we got this like shit bag version of Cliff Lee back. Dominant pitcher, piece of shit human. That drove me crazy. I blame Ruben Amaro Jr. I don't know where you guys are at with that.
I'm always fine with blaming Ruben Amaro Jr.
Yeah, me too.
But no, I
don't think it's all Ruben's fault.
What don't you think is? And he's not as bad as Klentak. Like I will say that he set us up a little bit better, but there were some things that really pissed me off about Raj. But why would you say that?
I just think because he was trying to win. Obviously, when he was going
He was
for
trying
Halladay
to win. He
Well, yeah, he was
moved the best pitcher on the roster the year before in the World Series.
He also blew up the farm system to get Roy Halladay. He was just trying to restock the pond a little bit. I don't necessarily.
But if he blew up the farm system by moving 3 people, how shitty of a farm system do you have?
My thing
I'm
is,
not saying he was great at, developing talent, but, he was just trying to put a World Series contending team on the field. And
by
I
moving
think he
their
did that.
second most valuable piece.
I mean, I'll put it to you this way. They still won the division and made it to the playoffs again, so it couldn't have been that detrimental. Obviously, you could make a case they would have been better and probably advanced further into the playoffs if they kept Cliff Lee. But, like I said, I think in hindsight, he knew he needed to get some talent back, and Cliff Lee was their most movable asset who could get some young players. Obviously, it's not like they got anything great back for him, but I think it was a move that, in hindsight, I see his reasoning for what he did, is what I'm trying to say.
I absolutely do not see the reasoning, because you moved 4 pieces to get Cliff Lee. So now you've just spent, I don't understand it. You moved all these assets to get him, and you said, thanks for the half a season. You got us to the World Series. That's all we moved 4 assets for. That's complete mismanagement of the assets that he had the year before. None of it computes in my brain. You're saying that he wants to win a World Series and he just wants to compete and he wants to replenish this shit. Well, you move 4 of those pieces because you value Cliff Lee to be the worth of those 4 pieces or more. And he certainly was that. And then you said, fuck it, we'll move him. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't.
And then my thing would be too, first off, you bring in Holiday, and then why even trade Lee? You could have, and I get it, money might be tight, but go ahead and get rid of somebody else. Like, you could have had, I know it ended up having him anyway, but like for this whole season, you could have had Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee as your 1-2 punch in the rotation. And I'm not saying it would have been as good as them, but you go back to 2001 when Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling led their rotation. It goes a long way into building rotation behind those 2 guys, 2 workhorses like that, who can not only eat up innings, but eat up innings in a good way too, where you don't have to worry about the bullpen. And then as well in that season, after gaining prospects from Lee, I'm pretty sure this was the year then they go ahead and trade 2 or 3 for Roy Oswalt. So you're giving those prospects right back for. I like Roy, but giving up those prospects right back for a worse version of Cliff Lee.
Yeah, it was like their way to kind of right that ship, and then to again doubly right that ship the following off season. After, by the way, Cliff Lee pitched again in the World Series. Like, it just, to me, that entire, any conversation that surrounds Cliff Lee outside of the original acquisition of Cliff is just moronic to me. At a certain point, when you decide you're moving on from him and you trade him, like, that kind of needed to be it. Like, let's not revisit our ex right now. Like, we were all excited because, holy shit, he's selecting us again after we did what we did to him. He's picking us over the Yankees. How is baseball allowing that? Like, how's the Players Association saying, like, no, this works for us. You're going to go to Philadelphia instead of, big bad New York, or staying in Texas where, again, pitching in a World Series. To me, every part of Cliff Lee's story here in Philadelphia just feels wrong outside of the original acquisition. And when Ruben Amaro Jr. goes ahead and says, all right, we fucked up, we're going to get Roy Oswalt. Okay, perfect. You realized you fucked up, but you didn't go and reacquire your ex. You went and you got another guy who, if we don't sign Cliff Lee at that point in the following offseason, we save, $150 million, $175 million. I don't remember what the deal was off the top of my head. But that's money we would never have been in any type of financial. It's just, none of it makes sense to me. To me, it was such a mismanagement of your assets, your younger assets. It was a mismanagement of your money. And it was just not understanding the way that humans work. Like, none of it made sense. That was one of the worst sequences of Ruben Amaro's history in this organization, in my opinion.
I have a question for you guys. I don't know if any of us will know the answer to this because we were all in Philadelphia in somewhat isolated at that point. What's the perception of Cliff Lee around the rest of the majors? Because I feel like we hold him in pretty high regard. We're watching him all the time. And I don't know if everyone else shares this same feeling that he was as dominant as the numbers prove he was during that time.
Yeah, during his stretch, he was like a very, very feared and respected pitcher. The issues that people had with Cliff Lee was never with his game. It was his personality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the big thing. Like, that was the thing that surprised, not unlike Bryce Harper coming into Philadelphia. We all had this, you know, what the media kind of sold him as. We had this preconceived notion of here's this like 19-year-old kid who acts like a 19-year-old kid, when in fact that's not who he is anymore. You know, sure, it was a part of him, but it was the maturation process he went through. Well, Cliff Lee is similar. So when we acquired him, we assumed we were acquiring an asshole who's a really good pitcher, who's in the middle of an excellent season. But instead, we got this guy who was just ecstatic to be in Philadelphia. So we never saw that immediate assholianness of him that the rest of Major League Baseball had always assumed and had. So we all had this like, oh my God, like he loves this city. He's funny. He gets along with the guys. He's just this dude from like Missouri or whatever who loves to fish and shit. Like he's just
Benton,
this,
Arkansas.
Yeah, wherever the hell he was from. But he just likes to fish and just relax and do nothing. And you're like, yeah, this is an awesome guy. We dig him. But then he comes back in 2011 and he's such an asshole. And like now we get to see the complete version. We get to see the dominant pitcher that he was. But we also get to see the fact that he's not the world's greatest guy. So it's kind of how the rest of MLB had always seen him, or at least the way that the media, national media and stuff had portrayed him.
I'm thinking more from like you're sitting at the bar, or like you're finishing up a game, you're driving home and you're talking about old times. I imagine myself in, 10, 15 years, whatever it might be, when I'm driving family, like maybe a little Scott home in the back seat, talking about the old times, how good it was. I don't think I'm bringing up Cliff Lee's name if I'm outside of Philadelphia, whereas I can see myself mentioning a Pedro Martinez. I can see myself mentioning a Roger Clemens. Like, those are bigger names that I remember and how good they were. I feel like he just is going to blend into history. I don't know if he's going to have this lasting legacy that, honestly, his numbers deserve. I'm looking at all of them now, aside from the fact that his name is Clifton. That's his full name, which is kind of a nerd name. The fuck out of here, Clifton. But like, he deserves more respect. I don't know if he's really revered as much as he should be.
I agree with you, Scott. I think he should be. I was perusing at the numbers myself, and finished top 10 in Cy Young voting at least 5 times. Even his first 3 years back at Philly, even if he was not the same jovial guy he was and became asshole Clifton Lee. He was I think third in Cy Young voting in 2011. I, for some reason, thought his 2012 stats were going to be worse, just because I remember he didn't win a baseball game until I think June or July that year. And that was a pretty big storyline in the beginning of the season because they weren't
wins are a bullshit stat.
I agree, but I remember that being, a narration at one point, like it's June and Cliff Lee is like 0-5 or something, but he still pitched very well. Still exceeded 200 innings pitched. Earned run average was in the low 3s, and he followed that up with a really beautiful 2013 season as well, where he was 6th in Cy Young voting. So he was still really good. I thought he was a great pitcher. I always enjoyed watching him. I think he's someone who, even, personality-wise aside, if he was an asshole, he's someone who should be looked at fondly, just because, like, even his 05 stretch to 2009 stretch before he was traded to the Phillies with Cleveland, he was very dominant as well when he won his first Cy Young Award, or his only Cy Young Award in 2008. So I loved him. I loved watching him pitch. I think he's someone who should have all the accolades he receives.
I agree. He's one of the most fun pitchers I had ever watched live. Like, honestly, that this stretch of time, getting to watch Pedro in his later years was like one of those just awesomely cool things as just a baseball fan, seeing him, and knowing his final games in this game or in this league were in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform. But Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay, watching the two of them, that was some of the most fun nights I had ever had at the ballpark. But let's keep this moving here. Let's go to anyone who has anything at this point that we haven't gone over. I know we have we went on longer than we probably should have on some of them. So I'll just kick the floor open here. If you guys have stuff, throw it out there.
All right, I'm gonna go to 2011. Similar to the camera, this is gonna be another non-player. I'm gonna go with
wind.
I'm gonna go with the rally squirrel.
Oh my God!
Forgot about the rally squirrel. That was
Oh
great.
my God! You just sent me like to wartime flashbacks. Holy!
The last guy I would assume
that
was
was
in
the
War
Roy
Biscuit.
Oswalt game, right? That was the Roy Oswalt game in Game 4.
Yeah, that's correct. It was Game 4 against the Cardinals. It was a mid pitch, and the squirrel was running across right behind the plate, and I think the pitch ended up being a ball, and then Charlie Manuel and Roy Oswalt argued with Angel Hernandez, and they ultimately lost the argument, so the pitch counted, and I think it was the next batter might have hit a home run or something like that. But yeah, it was the rally squirrel so that's why the squirrels are one of my least favorite animals now. That and the squirrels followed me to, I don't know if you guys probably haven't heard of it, but there's a huge amount of squirrels on the Oklahoma State's campus, and no one knows if it's a myth or not yet, but it is believed that like 10 to 15 cents of everyone's tuition goes to like keeping the health of these squirrels. And they even have their own, like, someone made a Oklahoma State squirrel Twitter page. It's pretty funny. So I just feel like squirrels haunt me now from now on. And then in 2015, the squirrel later returns and mocks the Phillies by jumping on like the dugout net and kind of like freaking out all the players. I think it was in like a June game. So squirrels are just not right for me anymore.
So here's the thing. I've been toying around. I've been talking to Stephanie about trying to get everyone together when baseball eventually happens and kicks off again, to have everyone over for barbecue that night, right? When baseball is back. A guy across the street from me legitimately names the squirrels, and they go to his house and have meetings. I shit you not. The guy is outside smoking every single day, all day, and he just sits outside and he's like, "Hey, Silver, you want a peanut? You were a real dick yesterday. You know that? I'll give you 2 peanuts, though." Gives the squirrel peanuts. Squirrel walks away. Squirrel comes back with 3 other squirrels. They all sit down and wait their turn, and he has conversations with them. So, Andrew, you may not want to be here for that evening. I don't know. Or I'll sneak you in, through the back door or something, so you don't have to witness that fuckery. But it's weird as hell.
That is very weird. Maybe it's the curse of the squirrels. Maybe they're trying to like set up something. You better watch out.
Dude, I don't know. That's a quality one. I thought you were going with a different route here, but that is significantly better than mine. I just hated the fact that there was a small gust of wind that kicked up on Chase Utley's 9th inning at bat against Wainwright in that series in Game 5. That is a ball that like 9 times out of 10 leaves Citizens Bank Park. And just that little bit of wind, you could see it in the flags on the broadcast. It, like right as that pitch comes in, gets that, and fuck, man, that should have been out. Game should have been tied, and who knows what's going on.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there were like, obviously it was a bad night for Phillies hitters. They only had 3 hits, but there were like 3 balls that were caught like on the warning track that off the bat you thought were gone, and it happened at multiple times throughout the game. Like,
yep.
It just seemed like, okay, this is the one that's going to go out. This is going to start the runs. And they all just got caught like right on the warning track. And was that an Adam Wainwright start? I thought that was Chris Carpenter, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it Carpenter?
I thought it was Carpenter because I remember the narrative being that him and Halladay were very good friends. And
maybe that's what it was. I'm blanking.
Yeah,
I think it was Carpenter.
Carpenter. All right.
Yeah.
So then it was probably a fucking sinker then. And he probably had the wrong spin on the baseball, too. That's dog shit.
Gosh, that was a terrible game. Game 5 of the NLDS 2011 will always haunt my memory for a number of reasons.
Yeah, no fun. No fun at all. Anyone else have any additional ones out there that we haven't talked about?
I got one more. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
This is just kind of a fun fact I picked up. I was just reading about how bad the Phillies were from, probably 2012 on. In 2016, the Phillies outfield had an OPS of .678. That's an OPS. And it's not even the worst OPS a Phillies outfield has ever had. In 1992, they had an even worse OPS. So
Different era.
yeah, different era, but not a good stat.
Bad. Very bad. Who was the outfield in 2016? I'm trying to even
I have
fucking
them all.
remember.
I have them all listed out.
Oh, God.
We have Odubel Herrera. Then we have Borjos. We have Aaron Altier.
Peter fucking Board. I hate everything
Cody-
about this.
Cody Ash, just an
Love
absolute
Cody
stud.
Ashley.
Darren Ruff, Tyler Goodell, Roman Quinn. Just
Wow, man.
not a good
Not a
cast of
single
characters.
power hitter.
Philly legends.
My
Yeah.
God.
So
Yeah, that's
2016, the year that we're all gonna love to forget.
Clearly. Good Lord.
Was that like the 63 win year?
It was the 63 win year. Yeah, we finished last in the division.
I think
Jesus.
we were like last in the league.
Probably.
The Braves finished second to last in the division, which I don't know why. I always feel like the Braves won 90 games every single year of our entire lives. So
That's because we grew up at a
Good
different
to see.
time, Scott. We're older than these guys. We witnessed the Braves win every fucking year.
13 years in a row. It sucked.
It was brutal. It was absolutely just awful. Let's see. So the only other one that I had, and I told you we would get back to it, was because I figured I would finally address this thing. I've always hated Brian Madsen, and it's purely because when you look at someone who has all the tools to be an exceptional person in whatever their field is, but they mentally just can't handle life, I fucking hate that person. Ryan Madsen was one of the filthiest pitchers I have ever watched, and I'm finally going to admit that because he was incredible. As long as it wasn't the ninth inning, and whoever just hiccuped, that sounded weird as shit in the
I'm
microphone.
sorry.
No worries, man. I'll forgive you. I'm just saying it sounded funky. But
It was like a burp. I tried stifling it.
that was a burp. That was adorable.
Let it go, big man. Let it go.
Oh my God. All right. But for me, I'm gonna go Ryan Madsen. Can we imagine how good that bullpen could have been with the decline of Lidge if we had a competent and sane Ryan Madsen who isn't going on DL stints for breaking his toe or foot for kicking a chair? What if we just invested in a sports therapist and made him go? We would have had a fucking bullpen and a ninth inning closer. And maybe he doesn't go to Cincinnati and blow his fucking elbow out first day on a 60 or $40 million contract, whatever it was.
Something that's always irked me about Ryan Madsen, and I don't actually
Teeny
dislike
head.
him. He did have
Long
a tiny
neck.
head. That's very
Weird
true.
as shit.
Awkward looking guy. But I don't know if anyone else noticed this, or maybe my memory is playing tricks on me. We've talked about my college years far too much today. But I would say probably starting in 2007, they definitely started juicing the pitch numbers on all playoff games. So Ryan Madsen, a guy who threw mid to upper 90s, like probably 95, 97 most of the time, was now throwing 98 to like 101 consistently on Fox Sports, and that drove me nuts. I don't know why they did it, but they for ratings and for people to think it's cool, but like that drove me nuts, and still to this day drives me nuts. And I only think of Ryan Madsen with that. I think he benefited from it, and people thought he was better than he was because of it. End rant.
100% agree. Although there are a million scouts everywhere with actual radar guns who know the real speed of that pitch. So I don't understand how people were fooled in baseball. I just understand how fans were fooled by him. But yeah, Ryan Madsen, just what a waste of talent he was. If he could have just controlled himself, he would have been a phenomenal closer. But we've talked about a lot of them. I don't know that we went as organized as I anticipated us going. I don't know why I felt like in my head this was going to go differently. But it didn't, and that's fine. We got a lot of shit out here. I think I'm going to name the episode, by the way, Squirrels Who Haunt Us at this point.
That was a good one to bring up. I completely forgot about that.
So it was one of
happy
mine
it got
too.
brought up.
Yeah.
I'm going down a YouTube rabbit hole after this that starts with Rally Squirrel and it ends with Oklahoma City Squirrels. So
there you go.
I'll send you guys afterward the Twitter page, but it's pretty funny.
I'm going to follow it 100%. But we have just a few minutes left here on this one, so we're going to go through. We're going to give our pick on the status of the bracket for Andrew's uniform bracket. So we are in the second round. You guys have already heard, we'll call them Team A for the argument's sake in this. You've heard their selections. We're going to go through and give ours real quick. We're going to try to get it done within like 6 minutes or so here. So for the first matchup, we had the bye week, we'll call it that, Philadelphia Phillies, then going up against the Dodgers. So let's go. We'll start with Biscuit. Who do you have in this matchup?
As always, I'm a sucker for the powder blues. I believe it was mentioned on one of the first podcasts when we started doing the uniform brackets that nothing was going to top the Brooklyn Dodgers uniform. However, I'm going to vote Phillies just because of my love for the Philadelphia Phillies as well as the love for the powder blue uniform. So Phillies for me.
I feel like the entire team here at the formerly known as PTBNL podcast have completely messed up how this is going. It's not supposed to be what you give a shit about the organization or not. It's supposed to be about the uniforms and the uniforms only.
I like the Phillies uniform.
And
better.
we got all these tainted things coming up in here, man. Biscuits, you disappoint me here, kid. I'm going Dodgers. Anyone else going Dodgers? Or we just at this point it doesn't matter. I think that makes the Phillies take it. But Scott and Andrew, what do you guys have?
Give me Jackie Robinson. Give me a
Thank you.
classic Brooklyn Dodgers jersey any day.
All right, I appreciate you being on the losing side with me. Andrew?
I was going to agree with that. Like, I think top to bottom, the Phillies uniforms as a whole might be better. But again, since we're going with the best uniform against the best, I'm going the Jackie Robinson Brooklyn Days.
All right. So I have to write down Dodgers in our bracket for this one that wins 2-1, but will ultimately lose 4-3 because the entire
Phillies.
Team A sucks along with Biscuit. The next one we have here is Brewers and Cardinals. I'm going to start with Andrew this time. Picking one uniform. Who are you rolling with?
I'm going with the Cardinals on this one.
Okay.
I personally I like the Brewers logo, but since obviously we're not going logo, we're going uniforms. I think the Cardinals powder blue traditional with the birds and on the bat like going across the uniform. I think it's just tough to beat.
So you like the relatively same look that they have had for a while. You're keeping it Cardinals here. Scott, I'll go to you.
I'm going to stick with the Brewers. I love the hat that I had mentioned, in the previous episode. I was a sucker for that. I also have just another old version of the Brewers hat in my room here that's pretty sweet. So got to stick with them. Love the hats.
All right, I dig it. And then Biscuit, who you got there?
I too am going with the Brewers. It was a tough one because two throwback powder blues, but I like the Brewers uniform. I think from like the 1980s where they had it was the powder blue with like yellow trimming on their belt and on their like sleeves. I thought it was just a very classy look that I enjoyed when I was looking at pictures earlier. So I'm going to go with Brewers.
All right, man. I'm going to make that 3 on the Brewers side.
The Brewers.
The Brewers. I know. I'm sitting here. I'm writing in a blue pen, and I'm sitting here, and it's just I don't know. My brain's not functional. But Brewers take this one for Team B 3-1, and that makes the total there Brewers 6-1. So the Brewers would be advancing for our PTBNL bracket at this point. Rockies and Expos. Biscuits, I'll start with you, man.
I went with
Expos Nationals. My fault.
I went with Expos.
Okay. Which Expo? I can't remember. Did we talk about this last time? Which Expos one you liked?
Just a kind of classy blue. They rock some powder blues as well. So, like I said, it's just I don't know what it is with me in powder blues, but it's just something that's like so baseball to me. Like every time I see that color, I just think, oh man, a baseball game, throwback night, a Thursday night baseball game with the Phillies. Bryce Harper walk off in the powder blue. Like it's just something that sticks in my mind so much that when I go back and look at teams and uniforms from the past and they're rocking the powder blues, it's just such a classy
that was
look
originally only brought in just for when color TV started coming about. They needed something to show like some slight distinguishable difference between the uniforms on field. That's why that was happening.
I did not. So thank you for that history lesson. But hey,
no problem.
I
it's
like
a lie.
it. Is it a lie?
Yeah, I was just fucking around.
Wow.
But you and
Now
your
I feel
powder
stupid.
blues, man, don't feel stupid. It's fine. I also don't know the reason. It could have been true. Who knows? But so we have one for the Expos Nationals at this point. Scott, who do you got?
Give me the Expos.
All right, and Andrew.
I'm gonna take a different approach. I'm going to Rockies.
Solid. I'm also going Rockies, so we're going to split on that one. So, Andrew, why are you going Rockies here?
I don't know. I just like the kind of the sleeveless jersey. I think I love the look of the black on top, the purple undershirt with the blue hat. I think it's just a tremendous overall uniform look and nice color scheme.
For me, it's the color scheme 100%. Like, there, in every sport, there's always a team that kind of goes against the grain of everything, and that's the Rockies uniform. And like ordinarily, that's the uniform that sucks. When you see someone who tries to be super different, with the two-tone goofy ass helmet in Jacksonville that they had. Yeah, that was horrendous looking, but they tried, and that is what it is. And then you get this, and this is an example of it working. Almost every Colorado uniform that comes out is phenomenal. And that color scheme is one that's pretty iconic to them. So I'm going Rockies too. That puts a 2-2 for Rockies. I believe that I don't even remember what the hell we're at with that. I can't remember the results of the last one. So
it was 2-1 Nationals Expos in the last one, so it would be 4-3 National. Or no, yeah,
National Expos.
Yeah, 4-3 National Expos.
You guys all suck again. All right, so we got Padres and Cubs in this next one. This should be interesting because I feel like a lot of people didn't like the Padres last time, and somehow they've advanced. So let's start with you, Scott. Who you got?
Give me a classic Cubs jersey. I mean, they are awesome. They are classic. And another hat I got up in my room, weirdly enough. Ninth grade through 11th grade, Scott used to rock this old school Cubs hat with the bear because I thought it looked like the Kanye West graduation bear back in the time. I know it's
you are corny as hell.
But it was a sweet hat, and I will never get rid of it. Thank you to my sister-in-law, Allie, for getting me for Christmas one year.
I hate how that was one flow of a sentence for you in there. That was pretty smooth.
Just imagine how smooth it would have been if I had my new mic.
That's true. Blue Yeti soon to come. All right, anyone challenging that Cubs pick here?
I'm with the Cubs too.
I'm with the Cubs.
All right, we are 4 for 4 on Cubs here. I have the World Series 2016 hat with the Cubs and Indians both on it. From that, so my buddy Al, who I worked with for Sports Illustrated, he was shooting that, and he used to always bring home the program and some sort of souvenir from each of the World Series that he shot. That's the one. This is the souvenir I got from that one. So that sits up in the studio full time. So when you guys are eventually back in town and able to be, around humans, you guys will see all the cool shit we have here. All right, we're going back over to the other side of the bracket. Now we have the Yankees and Twins. The Yankees were the bye of the AL. So is anyone taking the Twins in this matchup?
I had Yankees.
Andrew?
I'm going to go Twins.
Interesting. Going against the most classic uniform in all of sports.
I do like the classic look. I'm just the thing that I like. I don't know. The Twins, just their overall, again, their color scheme. I like just the traditional Twins uniform back, like Joe Mauer wore it, Justin Morneau. I think that look is just phenomenal, and I like their pinstripes as well. And I don't know. There's something about the Twins. I think the one thing I don't like about the Yankees uniforms, I know it's the traditional look, but the no name on the back just always bothers me for some reason.
Really? So I kind of dig it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the thing about like watching a game and like maybe you don't know all the players and it just helps you kind of figure out names. It's more of a personal thing. Like they bring somebody in from the bullpen or they bring in a guy off the bench. And it just helps you learn some of the guys' names. I think the name on the back of a jersey just helps fans as well. And I don't know,
it is hard to read these 65-inch TVs showing that X pitcher is on the mound who's at 16 pitches, so we know his week is over. It is tough.
That is a fair point. But it's always been a thing with me, and like whenever I see jerseys without names, it's like I don't know why. I wish they would just have the name on the back. I know it's a stupid reason, but it's always been a thing of mine.
All right. Anyone else sticking or going with the Twins in this one? I hate that the Twins went up against the Yankees in this, by the way, because the Twins would go so much further if they were against almost anyone else.
It was a tough matchup.
It is.
This is a tough one. everything in me wants to not pick the Yankees uniform because I hate the Yankees with all of my being, but I can't go against it. I think you're right, Shane. It's possibly the most classic uniform in all of sports.
Yeah, it's up there. And like I said, it sucks because the Twins uniform, and I mean, honestly, almost every one of their uniforms is phenomenal. It does suck, but you have to go Yankees. You just have to. We had a show that was canceled in Broadway. I don't know, like right before this pandemic, like got full, like media coverage of like the world's shutting down. So like we were still able to travel and do things, but because no one knew the severity of it yet. But the show got canceled like right as we walked up to the doors, and we're like, well, shit, we're here. So we went to the Wax Museum because Madame Tussauds is like a 3-minute walk from the theater that we were going to go see a show in, and you have that whole room of I mean, it sucks because it's only Yankees at that point, but all seeing the 3 generations of uniforms there, and like the only thing being different was the material and like a small hint of the shade. They're just so sharp, just so sharp. So you have to go Yankees here, in my opinion. So that's 3-1 on this show for Yankees, which pushes the Yankees through for the full team. We go Rays and Angels. No one selected the Angels from the first week or from the first show. Is anyone challenging that in this one?
I went with the Rays.
Rays. Everyone Rays.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Rays.
Rays gets a clean sweep for the entire show. Deserving because the Angels uniforms suck. This is where things get interesting, and I have to point out that Sean was awesome in his. If you guys listened to their show a couple days ago, he had mentioned that I think he said he selected the A's specifically because of me, and I appreciate that, Sean. That's dedication, sir. The Athletics and the Mariners, these are legitimately 2 of my favorite uniforms in all of baseball. So this is another one where it saddens me to see one of my favorite uniforms eliminated, but it had to happen. Let's start with Andrew here. Who do you have in this matchup?
I'm going against the A's again. I'm going Mariners in this one.
Mariners, yeah. This is one of those ones where I'm not going to care. Like my favorite uniform is probably about to be eliminated, but I get it. So you're going Mariners, which is it's a fine choice. Their uniforms are wonderful, but I'm curious which uniform are you picking of theirs?
I'm going back to the Ichiro, Ken Griffey Jr. type days when there's the old school. You had the teal look on them, and even their alternate. I think they were the ones that got a lot of crap for it, but I don't know. I've always thought it was a kind of cool their alternate jersey too. But picking one, I'm going with their teal jerseys. Okay.
Anyone challenging the Mariners besides me going with Oakland here?
I'm going Oakland. The black hat with the green A that I mentioned before. That's the alternate. It's my favorite hat in baseball. I'm gonna have to buy one again because I don't have one, and it'll just sit up on the wall in my room. But I love that hat.
I appreciate the fact that you went with the A's. It's a different uniform than mine, but I respect it nonetheless. And then Biscuit, who are you?
I went with the Mariners. Similar to Andrew, I am a fan of the Ichiro and the teal. Ichiro rocks the fuck out of that one. But the one that really sealed the deal for me was the 1980 road uniforms. And I kind of got this one confused a little bit earlier with the Brewers. The Brewers have some yellow in their design too, but this one they have like the trims of the sleeves. It's like a powder blue, but the trims of the sleeves were yellow, and the belt loop was like a yellowish as well, and I thought it was just such a classy look. And it's one of those, like, when I think of that color, like, I just think of baseball being played, and it brings such a joy to me. So I went with that one, so I went with Mariners.
All right, well, it's a push on this one at 2-2, so it is a 4-3 total. The A's advance in that one. Again, sad to see another quality uniform go here. Twins and Mariners, sad day. Last one that we have here is the Royals and the Astros. In the first section of this, they scored Royals 2-1 in favor of the Royals, 2-1. So let's start with you, Scott. Who do you got in this matchup?
I'm gonna go Royals. I like the newer uniforms with them, so it's weird that we talk about a new one that we like. The the Bo Jackson uniform, which we'd said is just so sick. But I've been looking at a lot of the newer stuff with the World Series hat that had like the little crown on it and stuff. I'm going Royals.
Royals it is for you. Anyone challenging the Royals here?
No, I'm going.
I'm
Royals.
with the Royals.
God damn. I went with the Astros, but I could totally see the Royals too. That is fine. That puts the Royals into the next. So what is that? 5-2 that one scores? 4-2? I don't know what the hell the thing is. Math. Royals. I can't remember how many members of the team we have right now.
It'll be
That's
5-2.
5-2. All right, I was right the first time. All right. Sounds good. All right. So that puts through here for night 2. I'll eventually go back and do the math of this. Dodgers, Brewers, Rockies, Cubs advance from the left side of the bracket, and the right side of the bracket is Yankees, Rays, A's, and Royals. If you guys want to vote on these on the upcoming rounds, which I don't know if we're still going to keep doing, but we got a lot of success in the first ones. Keep doing that. You can do that at the AMYP Phillies Twitter account. I think I got that right. So it's at AMYP and then Phillies. Andrew's been putting up those polls, and Sean's been managing that account. So thank you guys for all you're doing over there. Let's get everyone's Twitter handles real quick in before we close out this show. Scott, where can we get you, sir?
Find me at SP Novick. That's Novick.
And Biscuit, where can we get you?
We can find me at Broseph Biscuit on Twitter. Both B's are capitalized.
Okay, not that matters, never has. And then Andrew, where can we find you, sir?
First, AJ _ Santangelo, and then one quick thing. I think the Phillies beat the Dodgers, right? Because Biscuit picked the Phillies. I think Phillies won 4-3. I just wanted to make sure I heard that.
No, you were right.
Okay.
I eliminated the Dodgers.
Yep, that's why I'm correcting you on the fact that the capitalizations don't fucking matter.
Well, thank you, Shane.
You got it, man. I was just you mentioned the Brooklyn uniform last week. You mentioned it again this week, and you still went Phillies. I'm very upset about it. But keep going. Andrew, where else can we find you and your other shows?
So my other shows, Pub Sports Radio, True _ Philly Sport, and Philly _ Sports Now.
Yeah, I don't understand how you get anything else done in your entire existence. This man does so much podcasting and sports work. It's insane, and works in sports. So good for you, Andrew. You guys can find me. You got it, man. At Shane _ Mead, and you can find the Always Next Year Podcast Network at AMYP. What the hell is our show? Is it at ANY Podcast?
It's at ANY, podcast.
All right, we fucked that up like 10 whenever we made that then. That's crazy. All right, so it's at ANY Podcast. I don't manage that account any longer. It just kind of exists. It goes out there, and it's our kind of our announcement page. So if you want to talk to any of us, you're definitely better off going through our personals or Sean and Andrew's AMYP Phillies account that we've been using too. Be sure to rate and review us. It goes a long way. We do send our stuff out to different focus groups to get some feedback. We have once again went long on this show, and that's me. My bad. We will get that right eventually. We are very excited. I'm very excited for Sean to introduce the new name this weekend with the next show that comes out. Some other cool shit that's gonna happen. So for the rest of this stuff, let's throw one more shout out to the Jackdolls who bring us in and take us out. They are phenomenal. Go to www.jackdolls.com, buy their music, buy their t-shirts, support them any way that you can. They do have a Patreon that has some awesome kick-ass content over there. Their lead singer and songwriter over there is one of the funniest humans I know. And I'm not saying that specifically because he's my brother. He truly is brilliant and hilarious. And all of his bits in between songs are pretty awesome. And then if you are hungry and you are in the Bucks County area and you are quarantined, but you want to brave this world and drive over to one of the great food places, you can go to Just Food over in Buckingham Green. Visit our guy, Asian Rob. He will hook you up. Do this thing where you walk in and you say, give me the best thing you got. And I promise you he will do it. You won't even know why. You won't know what you're eating sometimes, but it's going to be fucking delicious. So go to Just Food. It's in Buckingham Green in Buckingham, PA. That's just above Doylestown for anyone who needs to know where that tiny little town is. But that is going to be it here for the last time of PTBNL. And we will see you this weekend with a new name. Same guys, just a new name and a more clear direction. Thank you, Sean, for providing that to us. We'll see you guys then.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But then Mickey Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.